You can love him or you can hate him. But for those of us who were living in the state of Florida during the big Trump warp speed forced jab era, Governor DeSantis was nothing short of a hero, standing strong and pushing back against the federal government's attempt to put a needle in your arm and have you say thank you for it. Now, some months later, Governor DeSantis came out in a news conference and stated that the internet was a net negative for kids, and the state of Florida would be taking steps to restrict their access to it. Well, we have a new study out now that proves it's not just a net negative for kids, it's a net negative for everyone, especially those in America, because something has happened now since 2005, which is pretty much the era of the internet as we know it, that might spell the end of America unless something happens, and happens very, very quickly. Real quick, though, we're going to get into this. I'm going to show you the statistic, and it's going to blow your mind. You're probably not going to believe it, but go ahead and check. It's absolute truth. Those of you, though, who have joined us over the Florida Marquee Patreon channel, thank you very, very much for your support. I very much appreciate it. I always want to take time leading off the video to be thankful, because that's a biblical value for what we have. And I have a wonderful group of supporters over there that have stepped up and are keeping the channel going. Without that, Florida Marquee's channel would have probably been gone a long time ago. So if you'd like to join us over there, 4 different levels, 2, 5, 10, and 15 a month. Totally up to you, and fully refundable, zero risk. First 90 days, no questions asked. What do you get? You get access to hundreds of videos going back to 2018 that have never before been seen on YouTube. So would love to have you over there. God bless. Thank you all once again. Let's get right to it. This was covered today by Kayleigh McEnany on Fox News during her little sit-down. It's called Outnumbered. That's basically their little deal where they have 4 women sit around with one guy and talk about things going on in the news. This was the big one. Immigration to the United States accounted for all U.S. population growth in 2022 to 2023, first time since 1850. Meaning that they didn't want to say it this way, but if Donald Trump had gotten his wall, right now, the United States would be in a catastrophic death spiral of population that would not be recoverable. Immigration, people coming here, was the entire number of people that we increased by population by. Meaning that when you take everybody who went to the cemetery for whatever reason, old age, car accidents, heart disease, whatever, and then you looked at everybody who was being born, it canceled out. It canceled out, and we got older as a group, as a nation. Without immigration, we'd be in a catastrophic death spiral. Why? Why is that? Well, I think it's pretty simple. We have one political party that has absolutely no clue whatsoever how making babies works. The Democrats. They have men who think that they can just grow their hair long, take a bunch of female hormones, and decide to go, stylish and wear whatever women wear and raise their voices up high, and abracadabra, they're women and they demand their pronouns. And then on the other side, we have a group of people that are so ridiculously prudish that any little thing that isn't exactly perfect is a reason to shame somebody. They have an idea in their mind of how relationships should be and how babies should be made, and they misinterpret scriptures all over the Bible. And anybody who doesn't fall in line with that gets shamed. And the group of people that should be having kids, young people, are so confused that they're just basically checking out and saying, you know what, we're not going to bother. Because no one has the talk anymore. No one has the talk that, hey, men and women are different. And they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be different. And we're supposed to probably not get along a lot of the time. It takes a lot of effort. Men need men's spaces. Women need women's spaces. But that doesn't mean you completely just check out. But when you have the internet, to check out, that's what's happening. Well, it's just easier to go surf online and go do this, and then I'm going to go over here and play this game, and then I'm going to check with my friends over there, and no need for any personal interaction. I mean, just in 20 years, it's absolutely insane. Some people said, well, we need to go back to the days when things were much more conservative. Yeah, let's go back to the 1960s when grandma, great-grandma were basically walking around in just long shirts. I mean, can you imagine this today? This is the style in the 1960s. Where do you think babies come from? Florida Monkey, why do you talk about this? Because nobody else will. No other problem is more important than this problem. Without people, without human beings being made and being born, I don't care what your ideas are about saving money with this program or cutting government over here or doing this and sending these people back over to this country. Not a great idea to be sending anybody back right now, especially those who are primarily Christian, i.e. a lot of Hispanic immigrants, a lot of hardworking ones. Found this picture too, 1960s ladies. No tattoos, nose rings, or green hair, or alternative genitalia, alternative plumbing. Yeah, let's go back to a time that was more conservative. This is the 1970s. This is still, a lot of people can't wrap their mind around that 1975 was 50 years ago. 1965 was 60 years ago. That the women in this picture, let's say this was just ballpark 1965, and each of these girls, let's say they're all 20 years old. If you were 20 in 1965, you're 85 years old right now. It's likely that a lot of these girls are older than Donald Trump. That these girls are older than Nancy Pelosi. Wrap your head around that for just a minute. Who remembers the days when you could, get off work, go home and maybe grab a bite to eat and grab a shower, and guys are meeting down at the bar. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. People really didn't check that much with whatever phones they had, if they had one. But you'd go down there and you could grab yourself a drink and who knows, maybe even light up a cigarette and make eyes at the girl across the bar. A lot of babies were made that way. I'll tell you how a lot of babies weren't made. The picture on the right. See, we had a time in this country. When people thought it'd be a great idea to discourage this idea. And it had its consequences. And people were like, you know what? This is a bad idea that we have government people policing morality. For those of you on the right who think that the people on the left who are confused about how babies are made, they're not the whole problem. They're not the whole problem. The people who were so taken aback at this. Yeah, I know. I said it. You see, if you would have talked to our great-grandparents and grandparents and you'd have shown them these pictures, like, oh, you got an older guy and a younger girl, and okay, what's the problem? How are you not outraged? By the... There was no outrage back then about that. See, everything has to be this today, doesn't it? Everything has to be this. Every interaction has to be somewhat of a job interview, and then, of course, subject to the approval of all of her or his internet inputs. I mean, I can't remember ever going on a date where I was worried about whether she saw my phone or not. But that's the big problem these days, isn't it? And this is from the 50s. I think this is hilarious. I really do. I think it might be actually the 40s. I have to look this up. The alternative to having kids. See, it looks like a joke now. It really does. It looks like a joke now, then. But now, see, I show these images like this, and these are the people that are literally in charge of the future. I mean, and you can put these images into any era you want to. Put it in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. There was always that young group of people that was supposed to be having kids. That was supposed to be picking out baby names. And it wasn't people in their 30s. This is probably the biggest, most stunning indictment of where we are in this country right now, with how damaging the internet. If Hooters, by the way, those of you who haven't heard, Hooters has had to file bankruptcy. Hooters has had to file bankruptcy. That's how damaging the internet and phones have been. When you go into a place like this, or into like Florida has a version of Hooters called Wing House, a waitress doesn't even bring you a menu. They have a little QR code that you scan, and you look at the menu on your damn phone. Yeah, I'm sorry, but the idea of the pretty blonde waitress walking up and, hi, how you doing? And having the conversation and the human interaction, folks, it's over. I mean, I don't mean to sound negative or anything, but it's very difficult for me to see how. And those of you that want to debate this, here's the CDC. I know a lot of people don't trust the CDC these days, but these are basically fertility rates by state. This is the year 2022, this map right here. And the areas with the darker colors have a higher fertility rate. The areas with the lighter ones don't. As you can see right through here, Texas doing really, really good. Up here, the fertility rates in the Dakotas and Nebraska are a little misleading because the populations are so small up there. But in this region, Texas is doing very good, but a lot of it has to do with immigration. A lot of it has to do with immigration. But let me show you something. You ready for this? Let's just go back to 2005. This is what the country looked like in 2005. Just 20 years ago. This is what smartphones and high-speed internet has done to our country. Look at all of the states that had a fertility rate of between 65.4 and 92.8. Even California was above 70, 77 for Texas. Let's see who was the biggest one. South Dakota, 74.7. Here you go. Utah. Gee, I wonder why. Utah, 92.8 fertility rate. The Mormons, of course. The Mormons, the horrible polygamists, that were having babies. Well, we can't have that. Even though there was polygamy all sorts of through the Bible. Maybe I should do a video just on that. I could do a video just on that. Just on the idea that there was no prohibition against polygamy in the Bible. And I don't care what you want to talk about Paul all you want. In the New Testament, he was talking to a specific group of people at a specific time. Arizona, 80.6. They actually have a lot of Mormons over there too, by the way. Idaho, 78.9. But look, you can even tell up here, this is where it kind of started. Dying up here. And now, look at what's happened. This is 21. Let me see if we can refresh here real quick. 20, and this is 22. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal what has happened to the idea of men and women getting together and having babies. And all of the precursor things, the necessary precursor things that have to happen before men and women have babies. I think that's what people are missing. I mean, imagine. The idea of, I can't even get into it right now because people are talking about so much minutia on X and on all of the different platforms out there that they think, oh, this is super important and aliens are super important. And we talk about Antarctica, and that's fine. That's fine, but if you're living in a country where your population is literally dying out before your eyes, I can't imagine what life's going to be like in 15 or 20 years. I remember 2005 quite well. But in 20 years, if this keeps up, America's not going to be America. Not like we knew it. I wonder who the president's going to be. I wonder what language the president will be speaking in, let's see, what would it be? 2045? This idea of it being a person who was born or nationalized here, not the case. It's just not going to be the case. So, once again, love him or hate him, he was right. The internet, high-speed internet, smartphones, net negative. A net negative. And I'm glad he's done what he could to mitigate and stand between the internet and the youth in Florida. Hopefully it'll make a difference. Pray for him. Pray for all of us, truly, because that's kind of where we're at in this country. And I'll say this again, I'll show it again. Only immigrants. The only population growth we had 2022, 2023 was immigrants. Meaning that had Donald Trump put up the wall and there hadn't been immigration for the last 4 years, that's getting shut off now. Had there not, there would have been no growth. U.S. population would have gone down just because of attrition. Just because of attrition. So, I'll leave it there. God bless all of you who are supporting us over at Patreon. Very much appreciate it. Pray for each other. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. Pray for America. Lift each other up. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.